Bitcoin rallied up over $44,000 yesterday. In today's video, we're going to be jumping down into the technical analysis on Bitcoin, reviewing where I think Bitcoin is heading next. Let's roll that intro and get right down into it. Okay guys, here we have Bitcoin paired up with USDT. This is the Binance 1 hour time frame chart. And as you can kind of see here, we did rally up into the range that I was kind of talking about yesterday and the day before. And this range does come in here at 43,584 to 44,136. You can see that we actually rallied up slightly higher, topping out at 44,283. Now, that was not my expectation to go straight up here yesterday. I was actually looking for us to come down to the trend line one more time before we rallied up to this range. Turns out I was wrong about that, and we actually rallied up a lot earlier than expected. This does, however, put us into an interesting spot where our corrections to the upside appear to be more complete now, and we can start thinking about bigger pushes to the downside. 44,700, in my opinion, is still likely to hold here. I'm not looking for that to get broken just yet. So for the most part, I'm still thinking we have to come on down. For the most part, today, I'm thinking that we are more than likely going to be heading towards the 50 EMA and the 50 SMA. These are coming in currently at the 43,064 for the yellow 50 SMA and 43,139 for the red EMA, the 50 EMA. So for the most part, that's kind of where I'm seeing these at the moment. On here. So I think if we were to lose those trend lines, then we can talk about 200 EMA at 42,520. So we're looking to see if we can keep support and keep the price action above the 50 EMA and the 50 SMA. Failure to do so, I expect to move more down towards 42,520 for the 200 EMA. And if you lose that, then I think, again, we'll be looking at this trend line and the previous area of consolidation and previous support, specifically around 41,500 to 41,800, and then down a little bit deeper towards the trend line here, basically at around 41,200. So there's a lot to kind of play for here on Bitcoin. I don't see us with much room to the upside. As you can kind of see, momentum isn't really supporting this anymore. We are, of course, not in any oversold positionings, and we are actually looking for more corrective moves to the downside. Take a look at it on the 4 hour from a stochastic RSI point of view. You can see it's just coming down from that oversold area, so we've got loads of room to the downside before we start to see any rallies. But let's go ahead and take a look and see if there's anything divergence wise. No divergences here, so we're not going to be looking for hidden bullish divergence that's going to kind of rally up or anything like that. We're pretty much standard at this point in time. We'll take a look at the 4 hour from that point of view as well. Again, we're not seeing any divergences here that could be bullish, unfortunately. So for the most part, I think our expectations are to essentially see price move on down a bit further. Take this up into the daily time frame. Obviously, we tapped into this range that I was talking about before, 42,400 to 44,146. And obviously, we did rally up slightly higher than this range. This is okay. It's still within its structure. Ultimately, at this point, Bitcoin is kind of reaching these upper areas and kind of getting rejected from them. Again, this is because this upper area is a premium zone. Basically, Smart Money Concepts is telling us that anyone who is paying or buying Bitcoin up in this higher range, they are paying a premium price for it, okay, indicating that it's not really a good value for money here. Ultimately, we expect, cheaper prices where you can actually take advantage of. Now, that can change, of course. If you were to rally on through 44,700, it would indicate that that is no longer a premium range, okay? So again, like all indicators in TradingView, they're all laggy. They only show you what's already happened. They only use history to try to kind of give you an idea as to kind of where things are, and they're not going to give you any future predictions. That's why price analysis is so much better, in my opinion. Indicators are great for giving you an idea as to kind of what's already happened, but they're not going to be giving you predictive capabilities, in my humble opinion. So knowing that we've kind of rallied back up into that higher range, I'm starting to think that we kind of don't have to go up any higher here, and we should be starting to think about those daily 50 EMAs and 50 SMAs. Those are at $39,032 for the yellow 50 SMA and $39,114 for the red EMA, 50 EMA there. So for the most part, that's the next area that I'm looking at for kind of support to be found on BTC. And if we lose those, then we've got the fair value gap to kind of look back down on, coming in at 35,000 to 37,000. And then under there, you do have equilibrium, which is sandwiched between the 200 EMA and the 50 EMA, 50 SMA lines, basically giving us an indication that, you know, an equilibrium could be a good area of support. It's 50% between the premium and the discounted ranges on the daily chart. 200 EMA sat down there at 32,398. And again, that particular area is of interest because it also sits inside a fair value gap, and that fair value gap is 30,200 to 32,800. So again, we know that there's going to be some interesting points of reference for Bitcoin's price should it start to really lose some of these key areas of support on its way to the downside. Ultimately, I do expect at least the 50 EMA, 50 SMA lines to get tested, and if we don't keep those as support, then obviously we are going to be talking about the fair value gap and equilibrium before we kind of move down closer towards the 200 EMA. Support can be found anywhere on those, but again, like I said many times before, I'm not too confident thinking about Bitcoin at the moment on these the macro views. Now, we haven't got any more divergences being indicated to us here on the divergence indicator for BTC. So we're not seeing any divergence in terms of price and the RSI. Everything there is still pretty much okay. It'll be interesting to see whether or not we do get a bearish flag here, because I think we are close to potentially printing one. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Otherwise, yeah, stochastics have just come out from the oversold area. Again, we can be down here for a very long time. We don't have to kind of go straight up to overbought. We can bounce around a bit. It's only showing us the strength of movements, and we don't seem to have the strength on the smaller time frames in the same way as you might think we do on this daily time frame. Take this out into, if I actually go ahead and bring up the correct chart here, the weekly time frame. The weekly time frame, as I said, there we go. We can see that we were inside the parallel channel here, testing those higher highs and the higher lows on the low side. We are getting rejected here, and we are looking for moves to the downside. We can see that we have some real interesting areas when it comes to BTC's price. Specifically with these areas of consolidation and support to be found. So we have 36,200 to 37,700. That's going to be the first kind of key area where we saw some kind of support being found, not only historically, but also in this kind of range here within our channel. And it also happens to kind of fall in line right with our midline of our parallel channel. So I think as we kind of think about corrections, this is going to be an interesting point to watch. Lose that, and of course we would be looking at 30,000 as the next key area of support, 30 to 31,000. This also happens to fall in line with the weekly 50 EMA at the moment, coming in at 30,800. The 50 SMAs right on the bottom parallel channel line, coming in at 29,000. If you were to lose all of those and break down from the channel, then we are going to be looking at that 200 EMA at 26,000 to try and see whether we can get that into support. It's actually more 27,000. It's 26,929. So we'll call it 27K on the 200 EMA to keep it nice and clean. And from here, of course, we can see that there is this interesting area of previous support to be potentially found, coming in at 24,750 to 26,878. So that's going to be also in a very interesting zone for Bitcoin to kind of keep an eye on. And of course, if you can't keep any of those, then of course the next kind of real key area, 19,569 to 21,789. That's going to be the area that we kind of wicked down to back in March 2023. And will be very interesting to see whether or not this is an area that gets retraced down towards. Now, in terms of price corrections from today's current price, we'll be only talking about a 17% to get us down to 36K. We'll be talking about 30% move to get us down to 30K. And we'll be talking about a 43% move to get us down to 24K. And a 55% move to get us down to 19K. These are important because as I go up into the monthly time frame here, just bring this into perspective, Every time that we've had one of these rallies from the bear market low, we've had a correction, okay? And we've seen in the previous, since June 2019 down to November 2019, was a 53% reduction, right? 53% reduction would put you right down there at $20,000. This is not going down to the lows of March 2020. That was actually 22% reduction. So assuming that we don't have a pandemic and we just have a 53% correction, which is pretty standard for Bitcoin after these kind of rallies, then we could see $20,000 Bitcoin. But maybe that's not enough for you. Maybe you want to kind of review what happened in previous bullish markets after bear market low points. Well, you can see 37%, 40%, 33%, 38%, 40%, and there was actually a lot of those mini corrections on the way to the upside. That's also something that we could experience. We could see a 40% reduction, bringing Bitcoin down towards its monthly 50 EMAs, for example, or 50 SMAs at around that $25,000 to $28,000. Again, that there would be a very healthy correction before we rally on up. But if we were to do something minor like this, then you would expect to see many of these corrections on the way to the upside, and you wouldn't just have straight shots like we had previously in 2021. In 2021, we had really only a handful of corrections, 21%, 16%, and then 31%. We didn't really see any kind of decent corrections like we saw previously. So if we were to kind of be wanting to see the most optimal kind of bullish market with very little corrections, then we're going to want a deeper correction now, in my opinion, so that we can really gear ourselves up for a really strong rally. If we only have a really poor correction of, let's say, 30 to 40%, then we're going to have a lot more 30 to 40% during the bull market, and I think a lot more people are going to get wrecked that way. So in an ideal world, I think it's just better to kind of rip the band-aid off, get a 50 to 55% correction in now, and then progress on with mini corrections of like 20% rather than having to kind of wreck so many people. But again, this is a market that can do absolutely anything. These are just my thoughts and opinions on where I think Bitcoin is heading. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. If you have found this video useful and informative, smash the like button. If you're new, subscribe. And if you haven't joined us in Discord, what are you waiting for? Check it out. Link is in the description down below. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.